these people. These are the numbers, just to give us a context of what we're looking at. When we started monitoring Kenya cyberspace in 2016, that year we recorded just shy of 8 million attacks. But last year, as of June of this year, we had detected over 860 million attacks. And what I can tell you is that in the last 3 days, we are detecting an average of 3.5 million attacks in a day. So in the last 3 days, we have detected more attacks than we detected in 2016 as a year. And the reasons are clear. One, we have a growing global population. We have 7.8 billion people across the world. The number of internet users is growing. We have more than 2/3 of the world. 5.3 billion people have access to the internet or are internet users. 4.9 billion social media users. 15 years ago, Facebook, for example, only had 100 million subscribers. Today, Facebook has 3 billion users. So the growth of social media tells you that these numbers are actually realistic. And again, there is a cost of cybercrime. Remember that the same information that is available to us as policymakers is also available to cybercriminals. Now, we have reports that say that the cost of cybercrime is 8 trillion shillings last year, and it's bound to grow to 20 trillion shillings. Cybercriminals will see it as an opportunity, and while we see it as a challenge. So these numbers speak to the statistics that we're seeing, but as I was just preparing for this presentation, I found a very important statistic from a paper that was done in 2021, about 1 year ago, that despite 58% of countries having national cybersecurity strategies, we are still seeing these problems. And it got me thinking, and I was like, what is the reason behind? Because strategies are there, so there must be a problem because strategies are there. If you do a comparative analysis of strategies across countries, they are more or less the same. You'll find certain elements of customization, but the principles, the objectives, the pillars are more or less the same across the world. So what is the problem? And so I looked at two studies, two papers rather, one done by Kaplan and Norton in 1997, and another one done by Isaka last year. And I realized that the problems that we had 25 years ago are more or less the problems that we have today. The paper by Kaplan and Norton identifies 4 key issues. One is the vision barrier. And the vision barrier is that about 5%. The argument by the researchers is that about 5% of the workforce understands strategy. But that was then. But what's interesting is that, so that's at an organizational level. What's interesting is that the paper by Isaka last year brings out the same thing, that there's a misalignment. There's a marked improvement in aligning cybersecurity strategy, but it's still lacking. It's still inadequate. So the vision is not being seen and articulated at the highest level. Of course, we are seeing a change. Government, for example, has now deployed, at the highest level, people to deal with cybersecurity. We are seeing a lot of attention by companies ensuring that cybersecurity capability is part of the board requirement. Of course, the second element was the management barrier. And the management barrier is about having, sorry, I think there's a problem with. Yeah, but the management barrier, according to Kaplan and Norton, was that 85% of managers at the time spent less than 1 hour a month on strategy. We are seeing the same challenge when it comes to governance. That cybersecurity is not getting the attention it needs at the highest level of leadership. The other element was the resource barrier. Again, that goes without saying. Cybersecurity is not cheap, neither is security in general. So we are seeing a resource barrier today where we don't have enough money to invest, or resources for that matter, to invest in cybersecurity. So you see the same problems you had in 25 years ago are more or less the same. The people barrier as well, and of course, it's been mentioned, we have an adequate shortage rather in skills and resources required to run cybersecurity. So the challenges have largely remained the same in the past 25 years. And the reason is because that is clear. So I came up with a few thoughts in terms of what we need to do. One is we need strategic leadership. And I must say that we are lucky to have a president who is the biggest champion of technology and digitization in this country. And the fact that we have two members of cabinet sitting here today is an attestation of how serious the government takes the issue of digitization. And I think we have gotten that right. But we also need to translate strategy into operational terms in a way that is organized. We need to motivate and involve everyone. We need to take a whole of society approach. It's very refreshing to see the Kenya Defense Forces bringing together people from across disciplines, from the private sector to the public sector to academia. We have civil society, we have researchers. I think cybersecurity requires that kind of approach, involving everybody, including the consumers of ICT services, so that we all come up with interventions that will support the realization of a safer internet space. And obviously we need to align organization strategy, the organization strategy. Cybersecurity is no longer a good thing to have. Cybersecurity is no longer a responsibility of the IT department. We need cybersecurity at the C-suite. We need cybersecurity issues to be articulated at the board level. So we need to make sure that it becomes part of the key focus areas for organizations, for us as a nation. And how do we do this? We need to have proper structures. The Honorable Minister talked about the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. We have the NC4 that has been formed. The Minister talked about the working group, ensuring that we are reading from the same script. So let's review our ICT landscape. Let's review and involve other players, whether it's interior, defense, and other ministries, to make sure that we get the structures right. Let's put in systems to help us to have proper visibility in the challenges that we have. We need staff and capabilities, many of the other problems that we have. Because collaboration and cooperation, we need to contextualize our awareness. I think one of the easy to intervene. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Ngundi. Chief guest, what I want to assure you that since I arrived here yesterday and I've been interacting with the panelists, I've met working experts on their areas. So allow me, therefore, to invite the panelists to also have some 5 minutes just on follow-up on what has been presented, but also now in their areas of expertise, they also share with us some of the issues that Doc has mentioned. So the first panelist to take the floor would be Ben Roberts, and as I mentioned earlier, is the Group Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at Liquid Intelligent Technologies. Ben, welcome.
Thank you. I also learned some things this morning already, which is a good start. But I think, when it comes to this area of cybersecurity, there's resilience is really important, and I think that's a great point, that you will get hacked at some point. So if you don't have resilience, then when you get hacked, you'll have a service outage. Now, I've been working for the last 21 years building the largest infrastructure across Africa of fiber optic cables, about 100,000 kilometers. And I won't mention countries by name, but in one particular country where we went in and put fiber in for the first time in that country, so they'd never had fiber before, and we were building a fiber network, a big one, connecting the cities, connecting cell towers. And then we started connecting banks. We've got a lot of bankers here on this panel, but we started connecting banks because they needed to connect their branches, they needed cybersecurity and everything else. So, the IT staff in the banks in that country had never dealt with fiber before. So, we said, well, we want to give you fiber. So they actually, they said, well, we'll talk to our consultants, who'll tell you how we want to design it. And all the consultants at all the banks were Kenyans, right? Because they were Pan-African banks, and they would call the guy from the Kenya branch because Kenya is an early adopter of fiber. So they'd done this before, they'd learned things. And then the Kenyan consultants had come and say, okay, well, we'd like to use fibre, but we must have 2 fibre connections from 2 separate service providers. This is the specification. And we'd say, well, we're the only service provider because nobody else has built fibre before. So we were coming in doing something new. But, eventually those banks in that country, realised that the fibre was more reliable than what they were using, the satellites and the microwaves and other things. But they still kept that for backup. They still kept those satellite links for resilience. But they realised they didn't need 2 separate fibre providers because, if it was built properly and designed properly, it would be very reliable. Now, that need for, or that requirement for, wanting not just 2 fibres, but 2 fibre providers is because you want to see that not only have you got resilient infrastructure, but you've also got resilient service providers. So if one company goes into a financial problem, then it might not be able to pay its bills and keep its lights on. So you need to have a link from another company who will be able to step in. So the same applies for cybersecurity, really. I think if you you plan your strategies around defending yourself, but you need to make sure that you are having backups of who your providers are, who is competent to do this in providing your services. And I think that for me is key. We've done a lot of work in the last few years opening cyber centres across Africa. So we have one in Kenya, but across all the countries we're in, we have different cyber centres, and they're all kind of feeding information, backing each other up. So if an attack happens in South Africa, we know about it before the attackers move to Kenya. So this sort of thing, taking a Pan-African approach is very important to us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll invite Mr. Fidelis Muya. Fidelis, as I mentioned earlier, is the Director of Technical Services at the Kenya Bankers Association. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Just to put the context in terms of the services that banks offer, we do offer connectivity into the payments ecosystem, and I don't need to belabor the issue that we are the ones who actually power the financial business environment. But Kenya is connected to 45 commercial banks who facilitate payments across the world. So we have international payments, foreign exchange coming in and going out of Kenya. We have the rails that actually power the national payments ecosystem. And we also then facilitate local and international businesses. The major issue that Dr. Ngundi mentioned is that the threats are more or less the same. It's just that the form of the threats are evolving as technology evolves. So if you look at the previous historical issues around payments in Kenya, it used to be cash. And so we used to have issues of threats to cash. It has moved from cash into the digital ecosystem. Consequently, the threat actors have also migrated from the physical threats. Now they are digital threats. So the issue about us protecting the ecosystem is ensuring that we also migrate our strategic application to ensure that we are dealing with the digital threats as today. Now, the threats that we are seeing from an industrial perspective is that with the technology providers moving into the digital ecosystem, the financial markets are also evolving. So the banks and financial institutions that have the financial muscle to invest in technology have largely protected their systems. So we are now seeing the threats emerging in other areas of the ecosystem. So for example, if we talk about the counties, we have SACCOs who are now implementing mobile banking for their members. Unfortunately, they don't have the necessary financial muscle to actually invest in technology that then can provide those. So the threats are now looking at those as very, very vulnerable situations, and that is where now we are seeing threats coming in. If you look at microfinance institutions that are trying to compete with the big brothers in offering credit, you will then see trends in terms of frauds now perpetuated through mobile financial frauds, involving those financial offerings by those players. So we need to look at a holistic system so that we can then look at, as we develop our strategies, how we are going to protect all the players and ensure that those who are not financially muscled are in a way facilitated to ensure that they can protect themselves, because at the end of the day, if you're going to protect the person from the bottom up, then the security also needs to look at it from the bottom up. So that is the perspective I would like to offer to this discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fidelis. I would welcome Lieutenant Colonel Wilson Kigoto. He sits at the Kenya Defense Forces Cyber Command. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And maybe a follow-up on the conversation and the keynote speech by Dr. Gundi. I would like to look at these threats maybe from two perspectives. And one, maybe from the security sector, the issue of the nation-state actors. We are currently in an era where countries are competing internationally. For geopolitics interest, everyone wants to advance his own interests. So now nation-states have started building their own cyber teams that then now can be involved for them to project power through the cyber. And some of the threats that we are facing now from these nation-states, number one, is the issue of cyber espionage. Countries want to know what you are doing as Kenyans, and also, in addition, countries want to know what our industries are doing. Can we get that intellectual property that rests with Safaricom? For example, we have seen countries which have taken engineering designs or prototypes of other countries' industries, and then now they go back to their homes, they give the engineers to develop a similar product. So how then does a nation, how do we then protect our competitiveness so that our intellectual property, trade theft, doesn't happen? Two, the issues of sabotage. Countries want to disrupt and destroy some of our critical infrastructures. So we've seen areas where people are opening dams remotely, and suppose an area where water is just, a dam is opened and water destroys a whole village. See areas where there was a case in one country where a sewage system was opened remotely and the raw sewage flew to the rivers and to the where people were living. So there are a lot of actions that the nation-state actors are doing, and we need ways to be able to protect ourselves as a country from such. See, threat actors are still, they want to coerce or influence both our civilian and democratic processes. So that's also an area that, as a nation, from a national security perspective, that we need to protect ourselves. Another perspective is now, how do we protect ourselves from that? And from one of the things, we have to ensure that as a nation, we build secure and resilient systems. So this means that all the systems that we are developing as a country, all the systems that are developing, and now that we are doing the digitalization of all our business systems and government activities, how then do we ensure that these services that we are providing to Kenyans are safe and secure, and that they won't compromise the integrity of this country? Two, we also need to have baseline standards that now everyone adopts, from the government, from the private sector, the industry, that there is a baseline that has been issued by a regulatory body that then will ensure that all the systems that we have in the country are at a certain base standard. Three is, we need to be able, if an incident happens, we've said that it's a matter of only when the incident will happen. But when the incidents happen, can we be able to reduce the impact of that incident? So this requires a multi-stakeholderism, as Dr. Gundi said. We need people from the private sector, we need people from government, we need people from industry, and then now we have a collaboration and partnership effort to ensure that now this country, its national security is safe and secure, and that we can also be able to advance our own interests. I think also from another point is, how do I support my CDF to be able to achieve his military objectives through the cyber domain? So that's another issue of nation-state actors. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wilson. I will invite Frederick Musili. As I mentioned, that Frederick is a digital forensics and incident response specialist at the Central Bank of Kenya. Welcome.
Thank you, Professor, for the opportunity. Mine, I will pick from what Dr. Ngud mentioned during his presentation, that cyber issue is not only a technology issue, but a human issue. In this context, from where I sit, being a firefighter, a responder, I'm called when the issues are not very good. We have noted a quite funny trend that we are part of the problem. Our team is part of the problem, a point in case. Ordinarily, we see institutions, you train your IT team, whether security or normal applications. But at some point, these people exit your institution with the very core skills. What is this person doing? Some of these guys have been converted. And that's where what we, in our field, we call insider threats come in. This person will not go out. This is his area of specialization. This is where he will feed from. So I think connecting from the presenters and the theme, we have that issue, which is very broad. Our insiders, our own staff, are a part of our problem. So I think to the decision makers in the room, it's a challenge to us. How do we deal with these people? Because they take various forms. We may not realize that the cleaner, the guard, the guy servicing the printers are source of our problems. From where we sit, these are the issues you find, because the cleaner has access to every office. The same thing with the maintenance people. So this is the weakest part of the chain in the system. That means, as we talk of cybersecurity, we not only focus on systems. People are also part of the issues we should be talking about. Dr. Good mentioned something on misconfigurations. I've seen these hands-on. Fidel also mentioned that the banks, like Taiwan banks, they have implemented security systems to make sure that, to ensure resilience. But in some quarters, you find the issue of misconfiguration, of which to me are related to under semi-skilled workforce. To me, we are rushing to meet deadlines to deploy solutions. I'm saying this because I've been in a situation whereby somebody was implementing a network solution, but it was implemented haphazardly, in that, yes, monitor what is happening, but do not block anything, allow access. The institution was victimized out of this. This goes back to the same concern, the people factor in cyber. Besides the technology, we always talk of people, process, and technology. So this is a linkage, this is a connection for these facets in the discussion. I've also seen, Kikoto mentioned the issue of state actors. From where we see it, the non-state actors, the preventive controls are the same. You prevent what you are aware of. You prevent what you have prepared to. I've seen recently I've been preparing for El Nino. This is because you expect it. The speakers have said it's a matter of when. But now that takes us back to the question that how are we prepared? The basics for preparation are the same, whether we are defending against a nation state actor or non-state actor. So I think, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much, Frederica. I will invite Nicholas Mulila. As I mentioned earlier, he is the Chief Corporate Security Officer at Safaricom PLC. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. And thank you, NGUK, for having us today and for just having this symposium. And one is because this is a topic that keeps me awake every day. So I think just going back to what the chief guest talked about technology, and that we have must embrace technology. I just want to talk about technology for good. And technology for good is where, of course, we use technology for the right things, whether we are going to be in agriculture, in financial inclusion, where we've done very well, in education, in health, and even in security, and basically in all other facets of life. And earlier on, when our speaker was giving some statistics, I just thought to myself I should give you some so that we just appreciate how critical this particular topic is. So from ourselves, I think on a day-to-day basis, we see about 3 million attempts every day, every single day, just attempts on our systems. We see more than 1,000 denial of service attempts every day. And one of the things that I usually say is that Safaricom, we pride ourselves with having, I think, the best and most modern cyber defense center in East and Central Africa. And we are able to, to detect most of these attempts and actually just drop them. And then I also have at least 1.2 billion records and transactions that we must protect every day. And first of all, thank you to all of you being our customers for trusting us. And therefore, therefore we have continued to invest very, very heavily on both the systems, on both tools and people, basically as an organization. But one of the realizations that we've had is that you can never hack it alone. You will never be able to succeed unless basically you collaborate with other people. And a good case a good case that we've had is about 4 years ago. We decided to make a bold move and collaborate with all the banks in the country to reduce cybercrime, financial cybercrime. We went ahead and actually reduced some of those incidences by more than 90% within a period of 2 years. And then after that, the guys moved to the SACCOs. And therefore, we realized we needed to onboard the SACCOs. So, the SACCOs came in, and obviously, because they will have their own integrators or people who manage their systems, then we also had issues there. Then we realized that we now need to bring on board integrators. And in the process, actually, I think together we developed a kind of baseline security standards for everyone who is connecting to, to systems. And what we've seen over the last 1 year, for example, is a reduction of almost 90%. Now, 90% is good enough, it's good, but we are not very happy with that one, because any one single incident of fraud is bad enough, basically for the customer, and of course also for, for our country. And I guess as we go on, I think for me the biggest challenge that I see is just basic cybersecurity hygiene that we actually need to embrace. CS talked about I think almost 130% penetration in mobile. And of course, we do expect in the next few years, we should be almost at 100% penetration just in terms of data alone, just in terms of internet. Now, that will mean our population of 53 million people will be clear points of weakness, for all of us. And therefore, all those people, we must more or less turn them into soldiers to protect, to basically protect the country, and also to protect our systems. And therefore, it will be important for us to continue to carry out very targeted awareness, very targeted education, of just basic hygiene, whether it's around things, just more things like passwords, small things like just the way we download links. And of course, you know that in our country, all of us here, you'll always find that we have 2 or 3 WhatsApp groups, could be funeral, whether it's wedding, whatever it is. And in those groups, actually, you find people just dropping some links. They just drop links. Some of them are doing marketing. Like recently, we've been seeing a lot of marketing around Forex, where your friends will tell you if you join here, you are going to make 15% every month. Of course, that's a big lie. And of course, guys go ahead and they download. There are two things that will happen. You are either going to have given your data or your credentials, so your identity will be stolen in the process. And of course, the second thing is that at the end of the day, you will lose the money, because betting houses never lose money, and even those guys will never lose money. So then awareness continues to become extremely then critical, for all of us. And at Safaricom, we have continued to just make sure that we talk to our customers, and especially during now that we are going into the festive season. And of course, you'll be seeing a lot of communication, from us, telling you not to share your PIN numbers, but also telling you that surely if you have not, joined a promotion, please do not be told by anybody that you have won anything. And of course, as Kenyans, those are some of the small things that then become an issue. Then the second last element for me is the learnings that we've had. I think one of the speakers said that it's a matter of when, not if, and that is true, 100% true. And therefore, very important to continue to invest in a response and basically how to recover, because it will happen. Are you going to recover within 1 minute or 2 minutes or even within seconds? And of course, that investment will continue to become extremely, extremely important. We have, as an institution, decided to follow a particular path, which we call secure, safe, and private by design. And you will always see that whenever we roll out any product, the team, actually my team, will have approved some of those propositions or innovations and said they are secure, first of all, from a cyber kind of area. They are secure from fraud. Then data is safe and is private. So once those three are then taken care of, then at that point we can be able to roll out. So I think for me, just to say thank you so much for this particular session. I'm happy to see that we are all collaborating. And before I'm asked any questions around Anonymous Sudan, I want to say that yes, we got very good learnings out of it. Very good learnings in terms of how do you do two things, how do you continue to strengthen, first of all, your systems. Number two, how do you also ensure that all the third parties that you connect to are strong enough. The third one is how then you get your vendors or basically your partners to basically support you. And I think during that time, just to say thank you, in fact, I think that time the E-Citizen team and Safaricom team were one and the same. And I know some of us from the security sector also were with us. And, the job was done quite well. And of course, that also gave us the impetus even to introduce many more services. I think we are at 13,000 now. And we are looking at getting to 100% in our digitization agenda. And I think for us, our commitment will be we'll continue to secure that system together with our partners, just to make sure that, our economy continues to grow. So that's the commitment I want to give. But just to say thank you and thank you so much. I hope at the end of this particular session and at the end of today, we'll continue to protect our country in a much more improved way. And of course, looking forward to the years to come of prosperity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for that wonderful intervention. I will now pose to the panelists 3 questions that they will address briefly. Then we'll also invite some 3 from the floor. So I think from the beginning of the presentation, Dr. Ngundi talked about the public. And I think Frederick has also mentioned that the issue of cybersecurity is not ICT, it's human. So could you tell us specifically, how do you improve public awareness? Because I think the CS and the chief guest mentioned that the direction we are taking is digital platform. It is indispensable. So how do we enhance or how do we improve on public awareness so that they can be able to use these opportunities with responsibility? That's question 1. Number 2, What specific areas would you suggest in terms of interagency collaboration among ourselves within the country and even within the region? Because I think we do a lot of trade, our people interact across borders, and these threats are not just at home, they also follow us where we are going. So what do we do in terms of enhancing collaboration among ourselves and also within the region? And finally, we have emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. How would these emerging technologies play out in terms of either worsening cybersecurity, or could there be also opportunities that we could use to mitigate some of these challenges? So I begin from Dr. Ngundi. I think you have taken enough air, so you can begin as we go across. Give him the mic. Yeah, thank you.
I thought you meant I've spoken a lot, so I don't need to. But good questions, Chair. Thank you. Issues of awareness. As I mentioned in our presentation, I think we need to contextualize our awareness initiatives. We need to leverage on the local creative economy to see how we can craft messaging that reaches the target audience in a very clear way. I think that's what we're looking at. And I'll give you an example. When Kenya Bank has run their Car Chonjo campaign, advising consumers against possible fraud when it comes to credit cards and so on and so forth. In a Kenyan context, for example, you'd want to really talk about issues to do with mobile money, for example, because mobile money and the interconnection with banks is used to relay a significant amount of money by the citizens. So it's about contextualizing, ensuring that we deliver the message in a way that our people understand. We have to look at what's the level of literacy. Which language do people consume the most? What language do people use? And find ways of developing awareness programs that will ensure that we reach to as many people as possible. When it comes to multi-agency collaboration, I think the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act is a very good piece of legislation. The National Computer and Cybercrimes Coordination Committee, equally important. I think some of the lessons that we learned as a country following the July attack on e-citizen was the need to involve the private sector more. Remember, a vast majority of critical information infrastructure is run by the private sector. Government runs a very small percentage of that. So we need private sector as key actors to be involved more. And I think it changes the way we govern, I guess, because it's not common to have that kind of engagement. But I think this is a necessary engagement, and I think it works for us as a country. The issues to do with new technologies like AI, I think we really need to give a lot of attention to artificial intelligence. And the reason is because AI is a very powerful technology. AI presents a very huge risk to cybersecurity platforms because of its capability to process, and I'm talking about AI and machine learning and quantum computing at the same time. Those AI and quantum computing combined can actually break most of the cybersecurity, most of the systems that we have. So it becomes a threat to cybersecurity. So beyond the benefits that it presents to society, I think there are key concerns that must be addressed. And since you are talking about cybersecurity in this platform, I think looking at it from that perspective becomes important. How do we make sure that we adopt these new technologies, we make use of the transformative power that comes with it, but we also be cautious as a country to ensure that even as we adopt technologies, we are preparing for the inherent challenges that come with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think I will just comment on AI and machine learning. So first of all, we are actually using machine learning already to develop products and services for our customers. And also, machine learning has really helped us actually reduce fraud, against our customers. So we are seeing lots of benefit in use of AI and machine learning. And of course, the world is moving in that direction. The biggest risk that I see on AI is likely to be around privacy, and therefore, even as we develop and we talk about cybersecurity today, it will be important for us then to develop, some good policies and also controls, and actually invest in just ensuring that even as we embrace those new technologies, then we are able to have proper controls, to secure data and prevent ourselves from any cyber attacks.
Thank you. On the aspect of awareness, I believe this has been repeated a number of times, but for me, I would say it's important that as we roll out the products, as we roll out the technology, let's inform our users that, yes, this is a market, this is a busy market, and like any other market, there are pickpocketers. So keep your pockets safe, because if you don't do that, they will get discouraged from using the technology, from adopting the technology. Our topic being, or our session being more on threats, let me mention this to the audience, and I will somehow pose a question. How do we manage how do we handle our decommissioned assets? When our computers are facing out as institutions, both private and public, where do they go? I see they are auctioned. True. Sometimes these has come to haunt us. They are brought back by the very people, element, and they easily cheat our network defenses, and they are used to cause casualties. They are used to victimize us. I'm just sending like a word to the decision makers in the room. This is something we neglect. We don't give even the vehicles, the government vehicles which are waiting for auction. They have no relevance, they have no importance. The same thing. But for this case, our systems, we have a challenge on that one. Session Chair, allow me also to mention something else I've seen. The presenter mentioned that the CISO function trickles all the way from the board to the operational level. Yes, this is true. We need a deliberate effort to reorganize the cyber function. To put this into context, when something happens in your institution, that's when you realize how your disaster preparedness is. That's how when you realize you never did mocks. That is mock preparations, or rather the drills, the dry runs. When an incident happens, that's when you realize that the CISO function is only on paper. The CISO function is only silent. You don't have the CISO function operational. I've seen this, and I think every speaker said that it's all about preparation. You don't respond without preparing. What do you prepare? You don't only prepare by buying expensive equipment, AI and so forth. No. The equipment alone will not work. It will need procedures, it will need standards, and it will need people, and the culture element as it was mentioned. So on these issues still you find that we have heard stories that the bad guys have been in your system for months. How does this happen? Why should these people be here? And we have defenses all over. We have a full hierarchy of ICT team. We have outsourced a SOC. We have a SOC in-house. It means the damage will be more pronounced. That means we have the time to detect is extended. When you extend time to detect, it means also how you respond, how you firefight, how you stop the damage, how you stop the bleeding will also be extended, and the damage, the outage will be more pronounced. That impacts to your customers, it impacts to your reputation, it impacts to your shareholders, and so forth. I think I will say thank you for that, and pass the mic to the next.
So thank you very much. I'll just touch on the first two issues. One, the issue of improving awareness. And how do we, as an organization, in your organizations, how do you make sure that your people are well sensitized on matters cybersecurity? And I think one of the ways we should, every year, can we, as an organization at the beginning of the year, can we have some sort of tests so that before now you start using the systems, that now you have been approved? Because 95% of the issues that we see in the cybersecurity domain is an issue of human error. And 75% of this is an issue of these phishing emails. So then, how do we make sure that those emails will keep getting to you? Please do this, make this payment. So for example, when a request is made to the CFO, that please make this payment, and the CFO maybe just makes the payment, and then now goes back to the CEO and says, I've made the payment. But that instruction was not from the CEO, the business email compromise side of it. So we need, as an organization, to create platforms which we involve our users, our system users, on a daily basis, that they are able to get that cyber awareness that you want. That anytime he sees a link, he should not click on it. Anytime you get an email, I think you should ask yourself 2-3 questions. Who is this email from? Did I expect this email? And what does this person wants to do? I think those key issues, if you start getting them to all our users within the organization, then we'll be able to solve most of the challenges that we face in the cyber domain. Secondly is also now the whole of nation approach. Now that we've sorted this in organizations, but then at the same time, how do we get it to those people deep in the villages? How Nicholas was saying, that tuma hii pesa kwa hii namba si kwa ile namba ingine. How do we make sure that the Kenyan populace is able to understand that these are malicious messages, these are malicious information messages that are being propagated for people to make gain out of it? And then on the issue of interagency, I think there's need for this, and these collaborations and partnerships that we build, both within the public, the private sector, and even with our international partners, they are very essential. And even some of them that we do them informally. For example, I can go to Nicholas, I can go to Fidelis, I can go to Ben and ask, how have you been able to do this? And since most of the times the private sector is much way ahead of the public sector, then I'll come with best practices that are being implemented in these private institutions, and then I'll be able to improve the infrastructure and the systems within the government. So we need these partnerships to be built, and especially now, even at the strategic level, let's have an organizational structure that then now informs how this is done. If we have that, then we'll ensure that our country is safe and secure from cyber attacks. Thank you very much.
Let me use the chairman's modus operandi to give an insight. We need to do reconnaissance. In the same way your colleague facilitated a discussion first before engaging, we also need to facilitate a discussion if we are going to put internet wireless in marketplaces. We need to first understand, do these villagers know what the internet is going to give you? Do you know what you should do with the internet? And do you know what you can do with the internet? And what can be done to you using the internet? That way then we will make them allies in whatever it is we are going to be engaging when they actually see the devices. The next thing is the public awareness. And I'll borrow from one of the things that has been happening in topical issues, the subject of El Nino. If you go to the villages today, everybody and their grandmother knows there is El Nino coming. How did they get that information? And how are they prepared? Because everybody is prepared. You will actually see people have prepared farms. They are all waiting for El Nino. Somebody has given them fertilizer in preparation for El Nino. I think we should borrow the same map and apply the digital technology. If we are going to give people handsets today, do these people know in 3 days that handsets are coming? And what are those handsets going to do? And how are they going to be used? So we need that kind of preparedness so that even before you give the devices, they know how to interact with those devices. I have kids, and they are the ones who actually teach me about my mobile phone. There are some apps in my mobile phone I never use, but my kids come and actually show me. One of the ones they showed me last week is they take my face and then they put different clothings and different postures, and they actually create a video of me talking, saying totally different things I've never ever said using my mobile phone. Now these are kids of 11 years old, and those are the kids we are making devices for. Imagine now if a player who is outside Kenya can access those devices and start accessing our kids with those devices using those applications. Have we told these kids how to use these devices safely? And that's the real challenge that we are having. I'll go to AI. We have technologies. Students are actually doing master's thesis in Kenya for students in universities abroad. And these are students we are saying our education system is not very good. But those students who are actually copying those papers and giving them, the lecturers are saying this is far above the standard of those universities out there. That means we have a very, very educated education system here. We have a very, very intelligent youth who are actually being used outside Kenya for gainful employment. We need to harness those. So those technologies can actually be used for good. They can be used for bad. So we really need to start guiding our youth in terms of ensuring that they actually use the technology in a beneficial manner, and then we can see benefits out of it. I will just finish with the other example of something that also created a bit of public outcry. Some international organization came into Kenya, promised every Kenyan 7,000 shillings for scanning their biometrics. And a lot of Kenyans actually lined up. There's a day I was driving to the office, and my office is near KICC. There was a queue around the whole of KICC, the perimeter, people queuing to be given 7,000 shillings. What they didn't know is that it's actually not cash. You're going to be given some token which is going to be exchanged for 7,000 shillings. Eventually, maybe not, because nobody knew where the money was coming from. But a lot of Kenyans actually went in